So, there have been recent developments in the realm of superhero movies, comic books, etc. But I feel like the thing that people are talking about the most right now is the latest trailer for Venom 3, The Last Dance.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this, right?
We have not. Yeah, it came out just, 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that trailer came out recently. And, listen, for better or for worse, people are talking about it.
Yeah. It has getting more attention than the original trailer, and I think definitely more positive attention. Because the original trailer, man, I mean, you're getting just the absolute diehards. Like, we're just happy to see Venom on screen, and like that's where we stop caring,
Right.
And I feel like that's not a large group of people.
Yeah, no. I think the novelty of what they're doing with this incarnation of Venom, I think it kind of died down after the first one,
Right.
And I understand the first one did make Sony a good bit of money, over $800 million. And I mean, that's nothing to scoff at.
No.
It's a shit ton of money. But, and not to shit on the whole Venom franchise or whatever, but it's like
We could.
we could, absolutely. But I think that movie made that much money because Venom is a very popular character,
Right.
and Tom Hardy is a very popular actor.
Yep.
That's about it.
Yeah.
And and I feel like if you're a big fan of either Tom Hardy or Venom, you kind of grow tired of their shenanigans by the second one.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely was, right? Like, I really just, all the scenes of, which there were so many, of just the two of them bickering or whatever, old married couple fighting, terrible, awful. I would never want to sit through it again.
Yeah. And they're just missing like this really special things that make Venom Venom, and that is like his whole story. But getting back to this third movie here, obviously the big takeaway from it is the introduction of Noel. They have brought in the symbiote god, the King in Black himself is now making his live action debut. What are your feelings on this so far?
Let me. I'm gonna do a thing I don't do a whole lot of, and I'm gonna answer your question with a question. Given how tied together Noel and Gore the God Butcher are, which incarnation do you think would be worse?
Oh,
Sony's Noel or Gore the child kidnapper? Because he certainly didn't kill any gods.
that is a tough fucking question, man. Like, goddamn, who can limbo lower?
Because I feel like the Norman Reedus casting is exactly, and that's who's playing him, by the way. If you guys weren't on the up and up, we're that's what we're here for.
Yeah,
I feel like them casting Norman Reedus is the same idea behind casting Tom Hardy. Oh, people like Norman Reedus.
Yeah,
let's get him.
yeah. He's not who I think of when I think of Noel. I mean, I think that he would have made a much better Ghost Rider.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
He would have killed that.
Yeah.
Up next, Steve Martin as Apocalypse.
People like Steve Martin.
Yeah, people like Steve Martin. People love Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Get him in here.
So I say this much. I think that Gore the God Butcher would be a worse incarnation of that character than Noel, because I don't think that Noel would be a big part of this movie. And in this case, less truly is more.
That's best case scenario. Like, if they go the whole, like, Assault on New York route where it's like, Noel sent these things and we beat them.
Yeah.
And, like, that's it. Like, that's a wrap. And then hopefully Sony will discontinue this franchise.
Right.
And we will never have to see the payoff from that.
And that's the thing, right? Noel, he's certainly a newer character. Came out around like 2018. So, in terms of comic continuity, he's certainly newer, but he has garnered quite a bit of popularity. And when comic nerds get popular about shit, they talk about it, and then word of mouth spreads it.
Yeah.
It would be ironic, to say the least, if Noel did bring in more people and cause this movie to make a decent amount of money. I'm not saying I want this movie to fail. All I'm saying is that, like you, I hope that this is the last dance for this incarnation of Venom.
I keep forgetting that they're calling it that. And then every time I'm reminded, like, my anticipated score for the film drops. You don't call it that. You just don't.
Oh, but they do.
It makes me so angry. So angry. I really hope it is the last Venom movie in this franchise. If it makes any money, though, you know it won't be. Yeah, it's very upsetting.
So, I've heard a rumor, and this is just a fucking rumor, so take this with half a grain of salt. I don't know if there's any validity to this or not.
Don't you Allison Hargreaves us.
Oh, well, in that case, then, I heard a rumor that fucking Venom 3 was going to be tremendous, and then they're just going to give Venom completely to Marvel.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. But no, the rumor going around right now is that this is just going to be the introduction for Noel, and that he will continue within the MCU.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
I don't know why Sony would do that.
Right?
Like, unless they already have a deal with Disney that we don't know about where they're going to get a cut.
Mm-hmm.
I would love it if they signed it like an overall deal with Disney where it's just like, you know, we're not giving up our license to these characters, but like, you're free to use them and we get a percentage.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the best thing we can possibly hope for. Because I know at least twice now, Disney has offered Sony to just buy all of it back.
Yeah.
And like in the billions, you know.
It's got to be, right?
And Sony's like, nah, like this the only thing we got that's making us any money right now. Because it sure ain't about to be that PS5 Pro.
No. No.
We don't have to dwell on that, but it reminded me of the PS3 where it was like $600 or whatever, and like nobody bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because like I didn't get my PS3 until years later.
Yeah, when they were like
about half
$200,
price.
$300, something like that. Yeah.
Like this, and again, like you said, not to dwell on this whole PS5 Pro. I forgot which one we were on, but
right.
It's like when the PS4 Pro came out, they attached a huge IP to it. You know, Horizon.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Hey, we got this new cool IP, and it's optimized for the Pro." And also the price point for the PS4 Pro wasn't fucking extravagant. Like I traded in my PS4 regular, and I think I put like $70 on top of it, and then I paid for the Horizon and went out the door. With this PS5 Pro, there are no new games coming out with that they can boast optimization for.
Nope.
And you have to pay additional like $30 for the stand. It doesn't come with the PS5 Pro controller.
Nope.
And in terms of like the specs on it, I'm like, I feel like that all that shit should have been with the PS5 regular, and it doesn't even come with a disc drive. Yep. So I don't see the reason for this. This is corporate greed at its absolute finest, and I can't wait for no one to buy this.
Yeah, I mean, like, what they failed to demonstrate for it is like, what's the killer app? You know, like I never owned a PS4. I got a PS4 Pro though when it came out because I saw Horizon and I was like, I want that. I actually got the bundle that came with the Pro and Horizon and everything, and like Horizon on the PS4 Pro versus what it looked like on the PS4. I mean, you couldn't touch it. You know, It looked incredible back then on the PS4 Pro. And with this, it's just like them showing like God of War, like you look at like God of War Ragnarok gameplay side by side on there, and I'm like, what? Yeah, I'm gonna get a couple extra frames, you know?
Right.
I mean, the thing already runs very crisp, even in quality mode. If you have a TV that has, you know, all the specs, you know, and I'm just like, who is this for? We say this a lot, like, you know, who is this for? And a lot of experts are already saying that there's no way this thing is going to run GTA 6 at 60 frames. Mm-hmm. It's going to be locked to 30 like everything else. It may look a little prettier. But, you know, being sort of a hardware expert myself, I'm going to tell you, It has the same SSD that the PS5 has in it, which, when it came out originally, Sony talked about that SSD a lot. But like by the time the PS5 came out, there was off the shelf SSDs that were already faster than the one that's in the PS5. So with the Pro using just a larger version of that one, it's the same speed. There are drives out now for a reasonable amount of money that are considerably faster. So you're literally just paying for a PS5 I think it's a little smaller, right?
Yeah.
Than the standard, but maybe not the slim.
Right.
And you're getting, some better graphics? And that's it.
That's about it.
You're not getting better frame rates because it's the same CPU. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that all frame rates tied to the CPU. It's actually quite the opposite of that. But the CPU is going to bottleneck the system, so you're not going to get much more from that. So you're just paying a very huge premium for it to look a little prettier. I mean, you might get some better ray tracing. You know what I mean? But you also got to look at this too, is that in this console generation, the prices haven't gone down at all.
Right.
In any other console generation, because these consoles came out in 2020?
Yeah.
2019?
2019. Tail end of 2019.
Tail end 2019. So we're 4 years in.
And they are still premium price points.
Yeah, and they're still the same prices they were when they came out. And normally by now, the Series X, I think, launched at $499. By now, that shit ought to be $299.
Yeah.
Same with the PS5. Mm-hmm. But they're the same damn price. So, if that was the case, if I could go get a PS5 for $299, and then, you want to come in and say this one is, the original price, the $499, or I could even say $549. Okay, you throw a game in there with it. But you got to think about this too. I think Ragnarok is probably the best looking game on the console, other than maybe the Horizon DLC.
Yeah,
and that's a fucking PS4 game. Mm-hmm. I love Ragnarok, but I mean, at the end of the day, we didn't get to see the PS5 unleashed in that game because they made it for the PS4, and the PS5 version is just prettier.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and that's essentially it. So, I mean, Sony, tighten up.
Yeah.
I
actually didn't mean to take us here, but
yeah, it's all good because that's been brewing in my kettle for a few days anyway.
One other thing, we were talking about casting, right?
Yeah.
So Josh Brolin apparently turned down the Hal Jordan casting.
I saw that.
So
Did you see the other options though? Apparently that they're shopping around for.
Yeah, let me explain something. I didn't like either of them. It was Ewan McGregor, and who was the other one?
Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, so...
And I kind of hope that he gets it.
When I tell you guys that... Okay, I really like both of those actors.
All three of those actors.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All three of them. When I come up to you and go, I don't want Ewan McGregor to play this character, it's bad casting. I fucking... love Ewan McGregor. The best Black Mask we're probably ever going to get.
Black Mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you said White Mask. I was like, is that like his...
I said Black Mask.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's white. The mask is black.
There we go.
Yeah. But no, I that's actually easily the highlight of the Birds of Prey movie. Is that,
boy, that's...
to the point that, I forget that he was in it because I've tried to just wipe the whole movie from my memory.
That's for the best.
But I mean, I hope that those fall through too. I know you're hoping Matthew McConaughey gets it, so that I can stop talking about his inevitable Mr. Freeze casting. However, what we now know is that James Gunn does know who Matthew McConaughey is, and has him on the radar for the DCU. So actually, we're getting a little closer.
No, dog. That's still gonna be a no from me.
He brings him into the studio and he's reading the lines. He's like, "You can stop. I don't think Hal Jordan's gonna work out for you. But while you're here, you'd make a pretty good Victor Freeze. So we're gonna have Matt Reeves get in touch with you."
I got Matt Reeves on speed dial. I've been blowing his phone up about what not to do.
You just been texting him like 3-4 times a day.
Right.
Don't pick up the phone for James Gunn or the Matthew McConaughey.
No matter what.
Yeah, I don't care what happens. Oh, but yeah, I am glad that he turned it down because I love Josh Brolin. I don't think that's the role for him. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess Ewan McGregor is at least visibly a bit younger.
Yeah.
And he's not as, like, grizzled, you know what I mean?
So, regardless, they are keen on going with this older Hal Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that just means they've got to be going for Jon Stewart, right?
That's the main.
Yeah.
You would think so, right? But where's all the casting information on him?
Yeah. Well, I kind of wonder if, like, Nathan Fillion is playing Guy Gardner.
Right.
So I feel like he's doomed. So
yeah.
I feel like he's going to die, and the lantern is going to go to Hal from Guy.
Interesting.
And then I think maybe they run with Hal for a little bit, maybe like a movie and a half, and then it goes to John. That's in my mind the way I'm looking at it.
I think the way I see it is that Hal and Guy are both Green Lanterns simultaneously, and I think that Hal is going to be off in a different part of the sector.
Okay.
And we're going to obviously have Guy on Earth, I'm imagining.
Yeah.
I still think that there is a high possibility that that Guy's going to die in some capacity, just because Nathan Fillion, he don't got the best track record.
Yeah.
But in terms of Jon Stewart, I'm trying to figure out how he plays into the occasion. I think that if anything, John might get Guy's ring if they're going to go that route.
Oh, yeah, okay. I can see that.
And again, not wishing death on Guy Gardner, but Green Lanterns, man, you can be easily oversaturated with too many lanterns.
Especially you going right off the bat.
Yeah, right off the bat. And, so if they can split it up between like the TV shows and movies, then maybe that can kind of help. But they're really going to have to be keen on the creativity and the differences between the lanterns to make this thing work out, because otherwise I typically hate when you see multiple characters with the same power set. Like, it just kind of... It grinds my gears. The Green Lanterns are obviously different because they're part of a space police force,
Right.
And so they obviously all do the same things. But man, I just don't need to see 8 different Green Lanterns on screen who all have the same abilities.
Their powers are also so intrinsically tied to their imagination, right?
Exactly.
So what they can conjure.
Yeah.
So that adds a little variety to it, at least.
It does, but they have to pay attention to that, And Hollywood is notorious for missing details like that.
That's true. But James Gunn, though, I mean,
yeah.
One more thing, and then we'll get to the actual meat today, because I feel like we got a lot to say about this.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about this? I think this is just a fan casting. I don't think there's any truth to it or any legitimate force behind it. But Dave Bautista is Hugo Strange, man.
That's great.
Yeah, I thought so too. That never crossed my mind until I saw that.
Yeah, I mean, especially like the way that he's been looking recently.
I hope he's not sick, man.
He said he's not. I mean, I watched an interview with him recently.
Oh, okay.
And he just said that he felt like he had gotten kind of fat for the movie, the Shyamalan movie he did. Knock on the Cabin.
Yeah.
Like, and he said that he really just wanted to lose a lot of that mass. And, I'm not judging the man's lifestyle, or I'm not accusing him of doing anything, but you can imagine that, look at him 15 years ago, a man of that size may have done some things to get that size. And, when you're in your mid-50s, the things that you did like that 15, 20 years ago can come back to haunt you. And he's probably just wanting to have some longevity. And, so stripping down all that mass is probably a great relief on his heart.
Yeah.
And he said that he's still 240.
Wow, he doesn't look.
He doesn't look it, right?
He look. Well, he's a tall guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, shit, he looks like $1.90
Right.
in some of them photos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you just look at it's crazy to look at him in ring shape versus now. He kind of looks like maybe he had on one of those like D'Onofrio suits that he was talking about,
right?
Because I mean, but I will say too that I think him losing all that mass also kind of aged him. Like, he just looks older now because he's smaller. You know, because like even like it's kind of like how like J.K. Simmons, he put on all that fucking mass to play Santa Claus, which was a funny fucking statement. He put on all that muscle to play Santa Claus, and he just doesn't look that old because he's big and ripped. You think about an elderly person, you think about like a frail kind of small person. So
because that muscle fills your skin out, so it makes you just appear younger. Yeah.
So I'm hoping that that all is well with Dave Bautista, and I think he'd be perfect for Hugo Strange, man.
I think he would also love that role. Because at least in some capacity he gets to work with James Gunn again.
Right.
And 2, playing Hugo Strange, you're not gonna be in like this physically imposing role. This is a psychological type of role.
Yes.
And I think that he really wants to sink his teeth into more roles like that.
And I think that him losing all that mass will help him.
Yeah.
Because when you see a big guy like that, Hollywood casting is automatically like, okay, he plays a bodyguard.
Yep.
He plays a boxer. He plays a UFC fighter. Something like that.
Your biggest aspiration is lead henchman number 1.
Yeah. How about that was crazy that the stuntman for The Rock was actually at Dragon Con?
That is wild.
Because I remember like kind of seeing that guy in passing and be like, man, that fucking Black Adam is just solid as fuck.
And so that was actually a suit from set.
It's legit a suit.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
There's no way he got that by legal measures.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that they let him have it because he was out walking around in public with it. So
right.
And people are like tagging him by his real name and stuff. Yeah, I mean, he's related to The Rock. He's an Anawai.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah, so
that was dope as hell though.
Apparently, there was a little bit of controversy on it because there's apparently like quite a few scenes in the movie where it's actually him and they just like put The Rock's face on him. Yeah. So he didn't seem mad about it.
I bet not.
Yeah, I mean, for a guy like that, like you get to be the stunt double for The Rock in a movie he's a star in. I mean, that's probably awesome. So
right, and he's probably. Because like the look and the heritage, he's probably the Rock stuntman on several things.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah. Right? There's probably not a whole lot of people that can stand in for him.
Right. Yeah, but he looked the part, obviously.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was crazy.
That was crazy. That was dope.
But our topic today, man, I'm really hyped about this one.
Same. Also, really quickly, just some housekeeping here. For those of you who are listening to us on audio, much again, appreciate all of you guys tuning in. If you like what you hear, please be sure to leave us a review, preferably of the 5-star variety, so more people can even see this podcast or hear this podcast. For those of you who are watching us on the YouTubes, also much appreciated. You get to look at our pretty faces as we. I don't know why you gave me that look, Caleb. Yeah.
What up? I don't know why, but ever since we got the camera, I like doing this.
I feel you on that.
I really don't know why, but for some reason that's my just default emote for the people watching on YouTube is
I'm with you on that. But for those of you watching us on YouTube, thank you guys. Continue to do so and hit that subscribe button. Really quickly, also they've been like comments sprinkled out throughout various episodes. And whenever I think to check on them, I do. And I went back and I was looking through Alien Romulus, and that one was funny because I feel like we got different spectrums from or viewpoints of the podcast, and it was great because there was one person who was like, "Hey, love the podcast," and like, "Hey, and we love you," and
we do, yeah. In every way that you want to let us.
And in every way that you will allow us to love you, we will love you.
Thoroughly.
And
completely.
Maybe we're taking it a bit too far. And the other person said something that just made me fucking laugh. They're like, This review was longer than the movie.
Oh, that happens a lot.
I was like, oh, you must be new here.
Yeah, you must be new here. That happens a lot. Well, see, we're at 25 minutes already, and we're just bullshitting.
We just bullshitting. Yeah, we haven't gotten to the main course yet.
Yeah, I feel like we almost don't have comic news episodes anymore. It's just we have the cold open, and it's just a serialized, here's what's happening in time right now. Basically. It's kind of cool, though, right? Because if you go back and listen to old episodes, you'll be like, oh, yeah, there was that one time where they were going to fucking cast Josh Brolin as Green Lantern. I'm glad they didn't do that shit. So like 2-3 years from now. It's like when I went back and listened to you guys' commentary on Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
And you guys were talking about how hyped you were for, like, Doctor Strange and, like, making your Multiverse of Madness predictions. And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess we did feel that way about that movie at one point.
Yeah. And that part does kind of sting when you go back and listen to old episodes. You see the one or two emotions is either like, I fucking nailed that shit.
Yeah.
Or it's like, that did not age well.
When I go back and listen to the, 20 episodes ago where I was like, I'm telling you, bro, they're about to put Noel in this fucking movie. And you're like, nah, they're not going to do that. They're not that dumb.
Lo and fucking behold.
I did fuck up and speak that into existence.
You did. I need you to speak more positively.
Yeah, I really got to stop talking about that fucking Candyman versus the Crow movie.
And for fuck's sake, stop saying Matthew McConaughey is Mr. Freeze.
Nah, I want that. It was ironic. I was saying it ironically at first, like it just because it was funny, but like now I really want it. I've spoken it into my own wants and needs.
I swear to all the gods and Marvel and DC, if I see an interview one day and Bryan Cranston's like, yeah, I was going to be Mr. Freeze, but I lost out to Matthew McConaughey, I'm going to fight you on the podcast.
And we're on video now. Because on the audio, that wouldn't be nearly as like entertaining. You just hear a whole bunch of scuffling.
Right.
I'd be like, don't spill my dick and nips. And then that'd be about it.
God damn. All right. Well, now that we've gotten the important matters out of the way, proper introductions are in order. So, homies one and all, I would like to welcome you back to a very special episode of the Superhero Homies podcast. My name is Quentin, and as always, I'm here with my illustrious co-host, the man of every single hour, the homie Caleb.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm so excited for our topic today. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite, or least favorite, redemption arcs. And this is something that's near and dear to, I think, both of us. We both love a good redemption arc. But it's also important to note that this is like, while it is a trope, because it's been done a lot, it's very, very difficult to pull it off well. It's a thing that gets attempted a lot of times, and I feel like it's a very delicate thing as well. I feel like it takes a lot of skill as a writer to pull off a redemption arc well.
Yeah. And, the thing about redemption arcs is, like you said, a lot of people maybe view them as tropey, but I think to a degree they're damn near necessary. If you're looking at like a character's natural trajectory for growth, a lot of the times it's going to lead them to a redemption. There are some characters who I feel do not have good redemption arcs, if any kind of redemption arc. They're just like a light switch, bad then good, and there's like you don't get that in between,
right?
And I think that is unfortunate. And there are also characters who kind of stumble along the way where it's like, man, that could have been really good had you guys tweaked a thing or two. I'll go ahead and say this, man. I think that Harley Quinn is an example of one who just needs a complete overhaul. I think that she needs a redemption, but DC, for whatever reason, just constantly chooses to skip over that part and go straight to Deadpool Harley Quinn.
Yeah. Well, I think too. I want to go back to what you said about like it being a trope. A trope doesn't necessarily mean that something is bad. It just means that it's a pre-established thing.
Yeah.
And so, it's like the whole, okay, well, the big bad hero rescues the princess or whatever. That doesn't mean you can't tell that story.
Yeah.
right? It just means that we've seen it before. So if you're going to bring it, you either got to bring a better version than we have seen in the past, or you have to put a twist on it to pull it off, or both.
Or both.
You know, it's like we were talking about the Null thing earlier. Somebody was like, they're going to nerf him, and then another person was like, they're going to have like friendship be the thing that kills him or whatever. And I'm like, well, allow me to introduce the third possibility. Both. The more horrifying third possibility. So yeah, it doesn't mean it's if it's a trope that it's bad. It just means it's a pre-established thing. So we've seen it. It's like the the characters are in the insane asylum episode of TV. You know, it's like, you're gonna do that one, you gotta pull it off.
Right.
For me, I don't know if there's a. Well, I like the one in Code V, so it can be done.
The one in what?
I said Code V. Gen V.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, my Resident Evil and my fucking The Boys just...
Yeah, I automatically went to like Code Veronica, and I'm like...
Yeah, that's the best Resident Evil,
yeah.
if you didn't know.
Oh, that's your favorite one,
Yeah,
huh?
that's my favorite.
Okay.
But the PlayStation version was called Code V, and that's where my brain went.
That's right, yeah.
So, I played that shit on Dreamcast, though, like a refined citizen.
Oh, of course.
But,
like a refined citizen, yeah. Yeah.
But, I mean, Harley Quinn, I think, is one that... And that's going to lead me into when I was going to ask you about. Mm-hmm. I could have Googled it, but this would be more fun. But with Harley, I think a lot of times, like, I know Suicide Squad kind of really hinted at her kind of breakup with the Joker or whatever. And she's such a popular character, and I know they don't want to change too much about her because she's sort of a diamond in the rough, right? She's a very rare thing where you had a character that you didn't pull from the pages originally, but now they're so popular that they're their own IP, basically. That's not a thing that happens often.
Right.
So I get their need to be delicate with her and not change her too much. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we just went from, hey, this person, is this kind of villainous, person who's kind of been brainwashed by the Joker or whatever. Or maybe they just are in on it, either way. You can never tell.
Both
is good. And then, people really like this character. So let's just separate her from the Joker and have that be the face turn. You know what I mean? And that's kind of how we see it a lot.
Yeah. And for me, so this next statement is about to also be unpopular. If you guys don't like my Harley Quinn statement, you're really not going to like this one. And that is, sometimes characters are better handled when they are quote unquote B tier than when they are A tier. And I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think another example of that is Carol Danvers. And not to rabbit hole us, but people loved Carol Danvers when she was Miss Marvel. As soon as they made that switch, they took away a lot of the things people liked about the character, physical traits not included, and then we got a character who they've been trying to get over as an A-lister, but it's like in wrestling when they when they try to force a character into a certain position and it didn't work.
Right. Yeah.
But with Harley, she was actually quite a nuanced and well-written character underneath Paul Dini, and that was because she got something from Joker that she wasn't getting from anywhere else. Good dick. No. She was getting this unadulterated attention and appreciation and this just laying in the trappings, to just draw this poor woman down. And he broke her psyche, and she allowed her, to a degree, I'm not victim blaming at all, but she also allowed that shit to happen. When she saw the red flag, she saw where things were going. She knew what kind of person the Joker was ahead of time, this mass murdering psychopath. And she chose to go that route because of the way that he made her feel. And then as time goes on, we see her being a willing accomplice, and we see her mindset also dissolve into what it becomes. And what a beautiful, dark, twisted story that is. And fast forward, Batman, the animated series is over, Harley Quinn is now a product of the comic books, and there goes that light switch, and she's just quote unquote babyface Harley Quinn now. And
Right.
all of the horrible things that she's done, that's okay. All of the crimes and atrocities she's committed, that's okay. DC wants to make money. Deadpool is very popular. Let's do our own version of that, and let's make this character into the fun, quirky character. And then to further divert people's attention, let's put her in a relationship with Poison Ivy and let that divert people's focus away from the fact that she was a fucking heinous character.
Oh, yeah. An absolute psychopath. I mean, on the level with, and sometimes even exceeding the Joker as far as the psychopathic, just brutal tendencies, you know?
Right.
She killed people. Lots of people.
Yes.
And was an accomplice to many more murders.
Right.
You know?
And to give you guys further example, Paul Dini, obviously, he was the head writer for the Batman animated series. He was also one of the head writers for the Arkham games. And funnily enough, he was not the head writer for Arkham Knight. If that tells you anything.
Tells me a lot.
He also wrote the Arkham comic books that were based on the video games as well. He's also the head creator of Harley Quinn as a whole. And so he knows that character more than anyone. And so if you guys really liked her in the Arkham games, well, there's a reason for that. The guy was the one writing her there.
Yeah, her and Joker were tremendous.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's a reason that they felt like they came right out of the cartoon.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, perfectly. But, you know, I just wanted to bring that up as an example of someone who I think they just completely missed the mark on, almost purposely so. A good writer can give us that journey, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that Harley shouldn't be where she is, but she's a one-note character right now that's being exposed. And she could have been so much more had they allowed her to have that proper growth.
Yeah. She's an example of somebody who needed a redemption arc and didn't get one. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm going to, kick us off with somebody who I think a lot of people think this is a redemption arc, and it's not. Would it be Boromir, right?
Oh, man.
You'll hear people be like, oh, well, he redeemed himself at the end or whatever. Like, sure, but he didn't have a redemption arc because Boromir was never evil.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at any of the flashbacks or really any of the material, Boromir was always this, like, loyal, just, noble character who was just trying to do the right thing. He got a lot of pressure from his father, but, his father really harped on him and was like really fucking terrible to his brother as well. Boromir was never bad. He was corrupted by the ring and he eventually was able to resist that, but he was never a villainous character. You know what I mean?
As someone who's read the books, how do you feel that the Lord of the Rings movies conveyed that?
Oh, they did well with it. I thought they did really well with it. And I mean, the thing is, he never had villainous intentions either. I mean, yes, if he would have gotten a hold of the ring, it would have been awful. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But that's an insanely powerful artifact that he was being corrupted by against his will. And even then, the ring preyed on his very good intentions where he wanted to, protect his people or whatever. So I don't consider that a character that had a redemption arc because it all happened pretty quickly, for one.
Yeah.
And for two, I don't feel like he ever was necessarily bad or evil,
And that is a very important distinction that you made there because, I think that people can say they liked his character arc.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, great character.
Absolutely.
And Sean Bean killed it with him.
And then he got killed.
Yeah, he went through a streak there for a while where he died and everything.
Yeah.
He was just a walking spoiler.
Right. But you're right, man. Boromir, he is such an interesting character to kind of mention here. Because you're right. He was corrupted by something.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like... And you'll be able to answer this way better than I would, but how much agency does someone have when they're being corrupted by the ring?
Well, ideally, like, it depends, right? A normal human, apparently, like, just us as a species are very susceptible to the rings. If you look at, like, the people who wielded the rings of power, not like the ring, but the ones that were subservient to it, look at what happened to the humans. Like, the 9 humans had it real bad versus what the elves and the dwarves had. But the ring is gonna prey on, what you seek after. Humans in Lord of the Rings are, they're described very much like we kind of actually are. Very, very vain, very, intent on, personal gain, profit, and even lots of hints in there of, like xenophobia. And that's a thing that, was present in Lord of the Rings as well, where, you have these human cities and they're, they talk about halflings and dwarves, and which, you never hear the hobbits call each other halflings. That shit was a slur.
Oh yeah, huh?
I just want to point that out. But they the gatekeeper says it breeding. Like,
why would a halfling call themselves halfling? I mean, why would a hobbit call themselves halfling?
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, humans in general were seen to be more susceptible to the ring's influence.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't really blame him. I mean, he was corrupted by a thing, but I mean, and even if you're corrupted by an external force, you can still do bad things that you're ultimately responsible for. But he didn't kill anyone.
Yeah.
It wasn't like he fucking murdered Frodo in his sleep and ran off with the thing.
Right.
He didn't kill anyone. He didn't directly harm anybody. He technically never even really put anybody necessarily in harm's way. He did kind of start down that, and if things had gone differently, I could see where he may have had a villainous arc. Mm-hmm. But I would not classify his character arc as a redemption arc.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I would say that the best redemption arcs, and what this is actually in reference to, it hurts my soul, but I'm not going to get into it. It is from a character you don't think is redeemable, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be the best redemption arc. It's not necessary for it, but I feel like in order for a redemption arc to be truly effective, you have to kind of believe that character has gone too far. And I feel like that's another thing that makes it so hard to write one, is because where is that line, right? Like,
yeah,
there is a point where you crossed it,
I was going to ask you that.
You can't come back from it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you thought that is it possible that there are characters who just cannot be redeemed?
It would be tough, right? Like, it'd be like trying to like redeem like Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this dude was evil as fuck for forever, decades and decades of just being this insanely heinous, awful person. And it's hard for me to envision a scenario where, it couldn't be like, just imagine he had lived, like they had just taken the galaxy back and he like got banished to some far off planet, and then like some other threat shows up and they're like, oh gosh, we don't want to do it, but let's go see what Palpatine's up to, man. We got to get his help on this. Yeah.
All right.
He's got the robes on and everything, doing the Magneto shit where he's like sitting in the back complaining on the jet.
Right, right.
That shit wasn't going to happen.
No.
He's just like one of those like evil to the core people. Sauron, you're talking about Lord of the Rings. He is like, there's no redemption arc for him because that's what he is, right? Yeah. This evil essence or whatever is kind of what drives him. He just is that to the core. So, I mean, a pure villain, no. But we talked about, like, yeah, you have to believe they're not redeemable. But on the other hand, you also have to, like, kind of want it.
Yeah.
As well. that doesn't always happen. I'm actually going to go ahead and bring out the first one I wanted to introduce because I think this is going to kind of go into it. Is Theon Greyjoy. I just recently completed a full watch through of Game of Thrones.
You watched all of it again?
All of it.
Okay.
This is be my second full watch through because I've never watched season 8, but the first time. And I will say this, and I'm not becoming a season 8 apologist. Don't think that, okay? But I actually think I enjoyed it significantly more.
Significantly more
this time. Yeah, I don't want to make the whole episode about it, but I will say there's two things that still I really, really, really hate. Okay, and Dany deciding to burn King's Landing is the most ridiculous. That's like at the top of the list of like this is the stupidest decision ever. Terrible writing, makes no sense.
Yeah,
ruins the whole thing. Right? Like, there were and if they wanted to go that route, there were ways they could have done it.
Absolutely,
that would have made sense. Maybe you don't do this really stupid scene in a couple episodes before where like 9 pirates shot a moving dragon out of the air with a ballista from like 10,000 feet, like a flying moving target with with medieval level rudimentary shit with a firing mark at that distance. That just doesn't track at all. There's no way that happened. Like, I could see if maybe the whole Iron Fleet shot like 100 of these bolts, and then one of them just got lucky.
Yeah.
Okay, but like they hit as much. Like they shot like 11, and like 9 of them hit the dragon.
Yeah.
You know?
They had impeccable aim.
Yeah, I mean, like they must have had like dead shot, bullseye,
right.
And
then also like the technology on what they call scorpions, right?
Yeah, they were scorpions.
Yeah, the technology on those scorpions had to have been fucking pristine.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be honest with you, like Deadshot, Peacemaker, they would have had a hard time with that shot.
Yeah,
even then,
right.
Hawkeye,
bullseye,
actually, Hawkeye probably would have been okay.
Yeah,
Hawkeye actually would have been like, you see, actually, we need to modify this just a tad here. The tension on this part doesn't quite.
It's like you need Forge to make it, and then like Hawkeye to shoot it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and they didn't have any of that shit. They had some fucking pirates.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So that if they had maybe had her dragon get killed like right at that point, and she just goes nuts. Okay, like I don't like it, but I would have at least bought. I'd have been like, well, okay, you know, like, all right, I can see how maybe she was pushed to do this, but her landing on the rooftop, she's won. The city surrendered, and she's just like, I think I'm just gonna burn this whole shit down,
right?
And I'm like. No, that was still just as bad.
It was, yeah.
But I think that is the only thing, though, that still, like, really bothers me. That's, like, the only thing that's, like, I hate this immensely. There's still things I'm not fond of, but we actually can get into one of those things in a minute. But I thought that Theon Greyjoy has one of the best redemption arcs. Because we see him as a young man, and he's been raised in the Stark household, and he's a Greyjoy. And the Greyjoys and the Starks couldn't be more different, right? They have very different philosophies and mentalities and everything. And his whole life, he's growing up, the Starks treated him kind of like one of their own. They never treated him really like a prisoner or a captive, but that's what he was.
Yeah.
And other people would jab at him, even like when we see the Lannisters show up, that... even I think Tyrion's the one that drops the line that says it was like seeing a shark on a mountaintop, and so he's got this family legacy that he barely remembers, but he also, Ned Stark was basically a father to him, and so he has to contend with that whole thing of like his loyalties are kind of to this one great house, but he is like the heir to another one, and he knows about their culture, but so much of that has been stripped from him. So you got to think he's got that kind of redheaded stepchild thing going on anyway. Yeah. And then you actually introduce him to that culture, and his dad is not a good dad in any way. He immediately, shames him for being who he is. The Ironborn don't respect him. He has this idea of, oh, well, I'm the heir to the Iron Islands, and so these guys are all going to respect me. And they put him with the shittiest crew they have, and none of these guys respect him. Like, they don't respect him at all. And so he gets this idea of like, well, I'm uniquely suited out of all these Ironborn. Like, they know how to sail and rule the seas and everything. And I don't really know anything about that. But I do know about what the Starks have taught me. And he gets this idea of like, well, the Northern Army's not there. We could take Winterfell. If I give that to my father, that'll be I will earn my spot, in the family. I'll earn the respect of my dad. I'll earn the respect of my men. And he knows that it's undefended, so it's going to be relatively easy to take it. I don't think in his mind that he ever understood what that was going to mean until he got there. And he's got a bunch of fucking absolute just, murderous fucks with him.
Yeah.
That don't give a shit. And so, when I think it's the Master of Arms or whatever for the castle, disrespects him, he's like, no, lock him up. And they're like, no, you got to kill him. And I'm pretty sure that's the first time he actually like killed someone, especially like someone that he knew and like grew up around and everything. So, he just very slowly descends into, this string of bad choices, where it's like you make one little choice that may not be the best choice. And then to account for the fact that you made that choice, now you got to make a worse choice.
Right.
And I think a lot of people can relate to that. A lot of people can understand that, because when it happens that way, there's a point where you get there and you're like, how did I get to this point? You don't realize how far you've gone until one day you're looking in the mirror and you're like, how did I get here?
Yeah, I don't even recognize this guy.
Yeah. And that's really what happened with Theon. And, when he was like, he killed, he couldn't find the Stark kids, so he killed those two farmers' children, burned their bodies and strung them up on the gates, saying that he killed the Stark boys. And a lot of people believed he had. Mm-hmm. It's like, how do you go from, I just want to feel like I belong somewhere, because that's the initial thought, to that, know. And it's like, you just look at, each step was a little further in the wrong direction. So I think at that point in time, not a lot of people wanted to see a Theon Greyjoy redemption.
Yeah, you're so right about like his slow yet steady descent, because with every decision he would make, it'd be one wrong decision that leads to a bigger wrong decision that leads to a colossal wrong decision. And while in the beginning of the show, you may feel, if nothing else, indifferent to the character in terms of if you like him or not. By the time you get to a certain point in like season 2, you're like, there's nothing else that can be done with this guy.
Yeah.
Like, get rid of him.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. At the end of season 2, he loses Winterfell. Mm-hmm. And we don't really know what happens to him for a while.
Yeah.
After that. And then he goes through some shit, man.
Yeah.
Just kind of the worst existence. Like, I think a lot of people wouldn't have even survived. Mm-hmm. I think there was a lot of times where he wanted to die.
Oh, yeah.
During all of that. We see him completely stripped of his identity as both an Ironborn and a Stark.
Mm-hmm. As a human being.
Yeah, I mean, he's literally sleeping in the kennels with Ramsay's dogs. And I think a lot of people will argue at this point, like, oh, well, he didn't really have a redemption. Like, he just got tortured or whatever. And it's like, no, he allowed himself to end up in those terrible situations, and he paid the cost for it. But he completely could have, when he and Sansa eventually helped Sansa escape. He could have just fucked off.
Yeah.
Right then. If it was just a matter of, he got tortured and paid for his, crimes or whatever, then okay, he could have just swept off. But he made the decision to stay with her and get her to safety. And even when it looks like they're going to be caught, he essentially sacrificed himself so that she could go.
Yeah.
And fortunately for him, Brienne of Tarth happened to be in the area.
Yeah.
But because had she not been, he would have been killed by those hounds.
Oh, for sure.
Or worse. There's no telling what the fuck Ramsay would have done to him.
Oh, it would have been awful.
Yeah. He would have hoped the hounds killed him.
Yeah.
And he was risking immensely to save her because he wanted more than anything to atone for what he had done to the Stark family.
And it's so easy to give up in those type situations because you feel like there is no atoning for whatever this character's done.
Right. And I'm sure that the character felt that way a lot.
Yeah. I mean, you can think of several moments where that's probably going through his mind.
And you see that on screen. Like, you see several times where he's just like, I don't know how to get out of this. I don't know where, I don't know what I could possibly do.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the bad character traits that Theon had even before he went down that dark path, like a lot of people considered him to be kind of a coward, He stood up to Jon later in the seasons when he runs into Jon on Dragonstone. He knows that Jon is aware of everything that happened at Winterfell.
Yeah.
What Jon isn't aware of is how integral he was into Sansa living. He knows about it. And he even tells him, Sansa's the only reason I'm not killing you right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Theon stands there knowing that Jon might kill him and faces him.
Yeah.
So, we see that growth of him. We see him develop that bravery because he's kind of like, I mean, look at what I've been through. It could only really be so much worse than this.
Right.
And, at the end, he took Winterfell from Bran Stark in season 2. And he meets his death defending Bran Stark at Winterfell, which I thought was a very poetic kind of full circle moment.
Yeah.
So that's my first one I wanted to talk about today was Theon Greyjoy.
Yeah, Theon is such a good choice, man, because, and that's also goes to like the benefit of long-term storytelling as well, because you get to see like the slow gradual descent and then the slow gradual ascent of a character.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, darkly poetic about Theon Greyjoy. Everything that guy went through, everything he did first, and then everything he went through, and then him trying to pick up the pieces and maybe not make things right because that's impossible.
Right.
But to do things better moving forward,
And one thing I like about his arc, too, is he falters, right?
Yeah.
Like I feel like in a lot of these redemption arcs, a lot of storytelling, it's like you're going down this path, and then there's just this one moment, and then after that moment, it's all upwards.
Yeah.
Where with Theon, that didn't happen. We saw him help Sansa escape. He goes with his sister, whatever. But when her ship gets attacked by his uncle, he flees.
Oh yeah.
And leaves her, and she could have died in that situation. So it's not like. Because, at that point, a lot of people were like, yeah, Theon's on the up and up. And then he does that, you know? And you're like, what's happening here? But that's a natural thing, There's very few people are going to just have a revelation one day and just completely change their entire, life and personality. It does happen. But I think in a majority of cases, you kind of have to get up every day and decide that you want to be better.
Yeah.
And
you need to make that conscious decision every single day.
Yeah, and some days you're not going to want to make it.
Right.
Some days
you don't.
Some days you're not going to.
Yeah.
And, for him, that fear that he had that was kind of like beaten into him literally, it was that I think was the hardest thing for him to overcome. But in the end, he stood there and went against the fucking Night King,
Yeah.
The if you're gonna be terrified of fucking anything,
right?
and paid the price for it. But it was such a fantastic arc. I think
it was. I agree. First up on my list, Silver Surfer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And this may be one that a lot of people wouldn't expect because when you think Silver Surfer, all you think about is I mean, he's the cosmic hero of the ages. He's a hero. He's such a good character. I mean, even he makes the sacrifice in the very beginning of his story to save his planet and his people and his wife. Here's the thing about the Surfer, though. He is full of grief and regret over the things that he's done.
Right.
I recently reread Silver Surfer Black, probably my favorite Silver Surfer story. And the thing about the Surfer is this, right? The way, for those of you who don't know, really quickly, the way he gets his start is Galactus, the World Eater, arrives to his planet Zenla, and Galactus, he has his goal, which is to feed. He needs to eat, and the Surfer, or at the time just Norrin Rad, he makes a deal with Galactus. Look, spare my planet, spare my people, spare my wife, my family, and I will be. I will be your herald. I will go and I'll seek the planets out for you. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Just spare this planet. And, Galactus agrees. And in that moment, he's transformed. The silver shell put over his body and given the power cosmic. And, and now at this point, he's to go about and to do Galactus's bidding. The thing of it is that at the very beginning of Silver Surfer Black, which is ironically it's a story about Noel and Silver Surfer, but at the very beginning of that, he's reflecting on all the different things that he's known by. He goes, "I'm known as obviously the Surfer. I'm known as hero. Some people revere me as a god. Some people pray to me. Some people do this and all the good things that he's known as, and all the things that people say about him." And then he goes, "But I'm also known by another name, and that name is Death, because everywhere I go, I herald death." And he just thinks back to the trillions of lives that have been lost because of his actions. He thinks about, he just names random planets. I remember watching the people burn, and I went to this other planet. I remember watching the people cry out to me, hoping I would be their redeemer. And he just had to stand there, nothing he can do. And, so that has always weighed so heavily on the Surfer, because what's he going to do? He has two options. And at times you feel like he has no options, but is essentially obey the teaching or obey his master, obey Galactus. And his master needs to feed, and there's people here. And there were times where he even kind of subtly mentions that maybe he tries to justify it. I led Galactus to this planet because they're war-torn people, but they're still people.
Right.
And so the trillions of lives that have died as a result of the Surfer seeking them out is something that weighs heavily on him. And Silver Surfer Black in particular, long story short, he gets flung back in time, back before existence was, and there's just the darkness, hence Noel being there. He is almost abruptly fought by Noel, and then he's almost abruptly saved by a very young Ego, the Living Planet. And Ego's like, "Hey, look, I'm aware of who you are. I'm not really sure why you're here, but I know who you are. Listen, together we can fight Noel." And they try to devise a plan because they have none. But along the way, Surfer notices that there's something wrong with Ego. He's in pain, these random spurts of pain, and Ego says, "Some time ago, some kind of meteorite hit me and it landed in my core." And Surfer agrees to go check it out. He goes down to check it out, and what he finds there is a ship known as Lifebringer 1. Lifebringer 1 is the ship that Galactus comes from. Galactus was once a man known as Gallon. Gallon was the last survivor of his universe before it died. And he got in this ship in an attempt to survive and to get to a different universe. By the time he does, he is now gestating in that ship. It's like an incubus pod for him. And when he emerges, he will be Galactus. And so this takes place, billions of years before the existence of current Marvel comics. And so Silver Surfer's there in the core of Ego, and he's looking at this ship, and he knows who's in it, and he knows what's going to happen. and he makes the decision, I'm going to destroy the ship and Gallon right now, so I don't have to deal with this ever again. And so he abruptly takes the ship out of Ego, and he's flying towards the Dwarf Star. Just going to be done with it. And it's actually there where he is stopped by Uatu. And Uatu's like, hold up. Wait a minute. I know what you're doing, but, I have to tell you that you should not do this. And Surfer calls him out. And he goes, you're not supposed to interfere. You're just supposed to keep watch. And
he's like, so the fact that I'm here should tell you.
Right. And Uatu goes, actually, the Council of Watchers have agreed that this right here should not happen. He goes, I'm not the one interfering. You're the one interfering.
It's like, bro, you probably shouldn't do this. If Uatu shows up and is like, hey, bro, you probably shouldn't do this.
Right.
You probably should not do this.
Right. And Surfer is like, but the billions of lives, trillions of lives that Galactus will end, like, this is the right thing to do. And what Uatu tells him is, that's not gonna wash any of the blood off your hands. Like, those people who died as a result of what you did, you still did that.
Right.
And then Uatu goes, I'll tell you what, how about this? You don't have to listen to me. How about you speak to someone who has seen the end of everything, and then you make a decision. And he allows Surfer to enter the ship that this would-be Galactus is in. And Surfer goes in there, and as far as I know, this is the first conversation, the only conversation that Surfer's ever had with Gallon, the man who would become Galactus. And he goes inside there, and they have this very candid conversation. And Gallon, he says to Surfer, why are you here? Surfer goes, I'm here to end you because of what you become. You become a tyrant, you become a monster, you become a murderer. And Gallon basically says, so you're here to kill me because of what I am to become, but what would that then make you? Who are you to do such a thing? And they end up having this very candid conversation about what life, about the perception of choice and what life is, and about there being a cosmic balance. And what Gallon says is, look, while I don't understand completely what you're saying I will be, here's what I know. I know that there are cosmic forces in the universe, and they want me to do something, whether I want to or not. And, Surfer at this point was just opposing that with what Uatu was saying, which is there's a cosmic balance to things. There's, yes, there has to be death. I mean, there has to be life, obviously, but there must also be death. And what Gallon is telling Surfer is, I know that you want to end me because of all the death that I bring, but what you have to remember is that you're also a part of this cosmic balance as well. There can't just be life unequivocally. There has to be something to balance that out with. And, he's implying that basically only the cosmic gods know the true reason as to why I exist, but I exist here for a reason. They need a Galactus.
Right.
And, they have this very, very interesting, cool, and candid conversation with one another. And when Surfer leaves, he leaves thinking, I still have blood on my hands. I am not going to kill Gallon. And I feel like I am still the same entity that I was before I decided to do this. But the thing that gave him was the information or the idea he needed to kill Noel, because he learned in that conversation, you can't wipe out darkness with more darkness, but you can wipe it out with light.
Right.
And that gave him the idea as to how he can thwart Noel in this whole thing. And so, I thought that Silver Surfer Black was a very beautiful story. And that was probably my favorite part of the whole thing, was when he gets to meet Galactus pre-Galactus. and have this conversation about all the suffering that's going to be brought about, and not picturing the fact that the good that he does also plays a part in that balance.
Right.
And so it was just it was a very, very fun, very cool, very candid moment for the Surfer to realize his place in the cosmic scale of things, and to see that, okay, I've done a lot of wrong, but damn if I haven't tried to do a lot of good as well. And so just seeing the Surfer realize that, okay, the things that I do won't take the blood off my hands, but I can try my damnedest to make sure that shit like this doesn't happen again. I can try my best to fucking kick Noel's ass. We'll see what happens. Right. But it was just a very cool, very awesome and candid story about grief, about vengeance, about redemption, and about regret. And I really love that story. Fun fact: Silver Surfer was apparently Stan Lee's favorite character.
I actually had heard that.
Yeah. So yeah, Silver Surfer is my first pick.
And that's an incredible pick. That sounds like an incredible read, and I really wish that any element of that would make it on screen for Silver Surfer.
That would be great.
Ever at any point.
At any point.
Yeah. One day
we can hope.
And that is an incredible revelation, right? Where, he goes through this experience that makes him understand that maybe his original idea, like he clearly sought atonement, but didn't understand it yet.
Right.
And I think that's very important.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I am going to go ahead and PSA to my Cosmere nerds that might be watching this. I feel like there's certain things that you might want me to talk about, and I'm not gonna. Just mainly because this man is about to experience some of this, and I don't want to spoil it for him. But the character I would be talking about it would be Dalinar Kholin.
Is this the one you spoke about at Dragon Con?
No, no. That character, I can't talk about that publicly. Okay. The fandom might send me anthrax in the mail.
I ain't know that shit existed no more.
It might, and that's exactly why it'd be such a good way to poison someone. But no, Dalinar Kholin is actually a character you're going to run into in The Way of Kings very early on.
Oh, okay.
And he's the one that I think has an incredible redemption arc that's probably even better than Theon. And the thing about it is, a lot of times, and like I said, I'm not going to talk about this one, but I'm just going to kind of very briefly. The thing about his redemption arc that makes it so unique to me is he's already done the bad shit, right? When you meet him, that's already in the past. And I feel like that adds an incredible level of difficulty, right? For you as the author to convey this to the audience, because kind of the whole idea is like, you need to see them like in some way harm the characters you like. There has to be like a huge downside for these characters that you love that makes you kind of hate this character. And I think introducing the character to you when they're already on the uptick is like adds an incredible level of difficulty to like a redemption arc.
Right.
But Sanderson pulls it off. So like pretty much everything that he's done that's villainous, he's already done it when you meet him. So that's all I'm really going to say about him. But I just didn't want. I know that there are people that would want me to talk about that, and it's not going to happen. So too bad, so sad.
Next time.
Yeah, and kind of one other note I want to put out there too. I talked about Theon. Is I've seen a lot of people talk about Jaime Lannister.
Yeah.
And he's my favorite character in A Song of Ice and Fire. And I was really upset about his arc and his decisions that he made in season 8 when it first came out. But I'm going to explain why I don't think Jaime Lannister has a redemption arc at all. I think that Jaime Lannister, while I do think he has character growth, I actually think that he is pretty much the same guy the whole way through.
Really?
Yeah. Because if you think about it, his whole like the kind of slur or whatever that they throw at him is Kingslayer, right? They all the great noble houses say it with just this venom in their voice, Kingslayer.
Yeah.
And even Brienne, when she first met him, she fucking hated his guts. But what you got to understand is like he did that to save King's Landing.
Yeah.
Was there obviously some vanity in it? Like, yes, like his family was going to die. Did they find him
sitting on the throne?
I feel like I should know this, but yeah, maybe he was sitting there. Maybe he was sitting on it or whatever. I'm trying to recall if he was actually on the throne or not when Ned walked in. But it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
But obviously he never thought he was going to take the Iron Throne. He didn't want that. He was a king's guard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I feel like his motivations then was number one, his love for Cersei, right, and sort of his desire to protect their family. And I don't know that those motivations ever really changed. Like, obviously, as the viewer, you get to see him in these moments where he's kind of portrayed more as a protagonist, but I actually don't think like who he is at his core ever changed. I think that he always saw like honor and nobility as a weakness in people. Very early on in his life, he saw Ned Stark's brother and father burned alive. He saw Ned Stark get his head cut off. Jon Arryn, was killed. All these people that were just trying to do the right thing,
right.
He sees them, it doesn't work out for them. Jaime Lannister is looking out for him and his family, and in whatever shape that takes, and that seems to be working out for him pretty well. I think the reason that Brienne is such a big impact on him is she is the first person that he ever came across that was those things, but was also incredibly strong. She had honor, loyalty, all of that, but was also probably the most badass fighter he'd ever met. And I think that for him is a paradigm shift. But I don't think that he ever realistically thought that he could stay in Winterfell, that he could stay away from Cersei. And especially once he realizes that, it's either like that she's going to die, right? Like there's no way she's going to just give up and get set free or anything. He goes back to her. And when that happened in the original show, I was like when I watched it the first time, I was livid. But watching it the second time, kind of through that lens of like knowing that was a choice that he was going to make and really paying attention to and kind of understanding him as a character, I think that his motivations and kind of who he is, I think they were pretty solid all the way through. So,
see, that's an incredible POV that I've never really thought about. I don't know how many people thought about that one. Yeah, I think most people look at the Jaime Lannister stuff and they're like missed opportunity, Yeah. But through the lens of what you just spoke about, that actually makes a good amount of sense. I guess even still, I wish they'd done a better job of conveying that story.
I think so too. But I mean, you look at it like a lot of people at the time he was most villainous, right? Is when he had the fight with Ned Stark outside the brothel because his family had Tyrion hostage. Mm-hmm. Do you mean to tell me that in season 7 he wouldn't have done the same thing? I mean, he would have lost the fight because he didn't have one hand,
right?
But he still would have fought. Mm-hmm. He would have done that same thing.
Yeah.
To Jaime, he was defending his family. We only look at it as villainous because we liked Ned.
Yeah.
And he would have fought Dany or any of them at any time in that show for Tyrion. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
So.
And that's a good point, man. Man, yeah, because Jaime, man, yeah, that's a very interesting POV, and it's hard to argue because when he goes back to Cersei, man, I remember just thinking, he's going back to Cersei, but he's going back as a changed man. He's not going back into her embrace. He's going back so that he ensures that she meets death embrace. Or he's going to talk some sense into her, try to talk sense into her unsuccessfully. That's what he's going to do. And boy, imagine my surprise when he just goes back to die in her arms, essentially.
Well, he tried to get her out. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's what his ultimate goal was. He was trying to get her out of King's Landing. But when he realizes that that's futile, he's like, yeah, I mean, we're born together. We're going to die together. And I get it. I mean, like I said, that's not the choice I wanted him to make. There were so many fan theories about, you know, there's this kind of like prophecy that Cersei gets that she's going to be killed, or that her...
By the hand of her brother? Or
it's not that she'll be killed, but it's like her doom will be at the hands of her little brother. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons she always hated Tyrion.
Yeah.
But Martin goes out of his way to tell us that Cersei was born first. Mm-hmm. And so she's technically older than Jaime as well.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people kind of picked up on that little thing to mean that either, one, that Jaime was going to kill her there, or that it would be Arya wearing Jaime's face.
I remember hearing that a lot.
You know?
Yeah.
And those were very popular fan theories. And when they didn't come to fruition, a lot of people, including myself, were fucking livid. Mm-hmm. But I think watching it the second time through with more set expectations, like I said, I'm not becoming a season 8 apologist, but there are a lot of things that bother me way less now, and that I understand a lot more now without having the expectations. The season was still rushed, and there were still a bunch of things that they did that were incredibly stupid. But you know, this is that. I don't want to make this that episode.
Oh, I understand. Yeah, that episode will probably come at some point.
So here's one we can discuss, because the homie Oz actually this morning asked me if this was on my list, and I said, well, this person's probably on Ace's list, so we probably just talk about this one together. But Vegeta.
He was on my list.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. The Prince of all Saiyans, man. We talked about long-term storytelling and how a character can really benefit from that. And, you know, rest in peace to Akira Toriyama, for sure. I don't tend to really love his storytelling, right? Mm-hmm. This new Dayama show that's coming out, like, I'm not even going to bother. It looks like the second coming of GT.
GT, that's what I was thinking.
And GT was horrendous nonsense, you know.
And the Toriyama, he didn't make GT, though. Correct?
No, he wouldn't even make it. It's considered non-canon. So they're like, oh, well, let's make a canon version of this. And I think they kind of mistake. It's kind of like Sony re-releasing Morbius, where it's like they mistake the things that people like about. Like, granted, I think a lot of people like Baby. Mm-hmm. I think pretty much everyone loved Super 17.
Yeah.
For the love of God, please don't do that now. I swear to God, if you guys ruin the perfect fucking character that is the current Super in 17 in Super, not to be confused with Super 17. I know it's confusing. I will never forgive any of you, but yeah, I mean,
they might.
But a lot of GT, all the lost episodes are terrible. Everybody that's not Goku was treated like garbage.
Oh yeah,
and that's a lot of, you know, that's a lot of Toriyama stuff. Mm-hmm. I feel like the Vegeta, the amazing arc that Vegeta had. I don't know if like maybe he just lucked up and did this, or was following kind of where the fan base was going. But to me, Vegeta's redemption is one of the most incredible redemption arcs in all of storytelling.
I agree. I think it's to the point where I won't say that Vegeta's arc is the first time something like that was done in anime, but I can tell you this, a lot of damn near every single other anime that's action-based after Dragon Ball Z has tried to replicate that. There is, quote-unquote, a Vegeta in like 90% of anime that comes after Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I mean, Zuko in Avatar. I mean,
yeah. And it's like you can pick them out. Like, okay, that's that's the Vegeta stand-in right there.
Yeah, it is really, yeah.
And it's because it was just done so well and Z and Super, just still continuing on. But with you mentioned earlier about how you don't know if this was something that Toriyama did on purpose, if he had this planned out, if he was following the fan base. I don't know either, but I know that Toriyama seemed like such a whimsical kind of guy who would just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
So I mean, who knows? This much I can say though, I wouldn't be surprised if Toriyama never had plans on turning Vegeta face, because you look at how he's presented in that Saiyan arc.
I mean, and this isn't a character, one of the unique things about Vegeta is like, Vegeta's evil from the moment we meet him.
Mm-hmm.
He's never presented as a good character. He's always just like we don't really even know, if you're just watching Dragon Ball Z, you don't know what a Saiyan is really.
Mm-hmm.
You're introduced to them as this sort of evil race.
Yeah.
Right off the bat, and Vegeta is the prince of all Saiyans. He's like the embodiment of that. And it's not until later, that you learn about like his sort of forced, like indentured servitude to Frieza. And I think that's the first part where you kind of start to feel bad for him, a little bit. But every time you do, he gives you a reason to fucking hate him.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not really a point on Namek where he does anything heroic. He's still out for himself.
Mm-hmm.
He would not think twice about killing any of the main characters in exchange, for his own personal gain.
Yeah.
Which at that point his main thing is he wants to beat Frieza. The only reason that our protagonists and Vegeta have any sort of alignment is because they are facing the same threat.
Exactly.
There's never any camaraderie there.
Yeah.
And even when they're fighting Frieza and Vegeta steps in, it's not, oh, I'll help you guys beat him. It's stand back and let me take care of this shit.
Right.
Because I'm the Prince of all Saiyans.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the Prince of all Saiyans. This is my destiny. I'm a Super Saiyan, quote unquote. I'm not really Super Saiyan. Oh yeah, that talk about a tragic fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, Vegeta was so excellent, right? And then you look at that fight he has with Frieza when Vegeta thinks he's a Super Saiyan. God damn, what a fuck up. What a fuck up that is. And Vegeta gets the shit beat out of him. I mean, this was one of the most gruesome ass whoopings I've seen in like any anime.
It was heavily edited for television.
Oh. Yeah. And it's like and there's Krillin, Piccolo, and Gohan and Dende. And all they can do is just watch.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else they can and Frieza could have killed Vegeta forever ago.
Yeah.
And he's just taking his time, right?
Because he likes seeing their leader, the Saiyan royalty under his heel.
Yeah.
He gets a great pleasure in it.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, it's just an awful ass whooping.
Yeah.
But the thing I like about Vegeta, about his redemption the most, is the way they handle the aftermath of the Frieza stuff. Because I can see a lesser story changing his personality after that.
Yeah, but instead they go the opposite direction.
Yeah.
And it becomes envy, right? He goes from hatred to envy like that, It's like, well, not only, it's like, you would think, okay, well, Frieza's defeated, so now I can go off and do whatever I want, I'm liberated from this. But he I don't think he ever once has that thought, because number one, it's like, I was supposed to be the one that defeated him. I was supposed to be the one that freed my people. So not only did you take that from me, but you're the legendary Super Saiyan. You weren't even trained. Right. You're a low-born peasant, and you're out here trying to pretend that you're better than me. You didn't earn this. You didn't deserve it. So it's like, his mentality, it almost gets worse at this point.
Oh yeah.
And I thought it was a brilliant decision.
It was, right? And I love that you mentioned that it goes from hatred to envy, because that shit cost them dearly in the seasons that follow it.
Oh, God. I mean, Cell,
Yeah, perfect example.
Cell nearly destroyed the Earth because of of his just vanity. And his envy.
Yeah. Vanity, envy, and ego. Like those three things combined. Whew.
That him letting him absorb the androids.
Oh,
just
yeah.
Craziness, right?
Right.
And most people, I feel like it takes a lot for us not to look at that and go, that was an incompetent decision. Competence has nothing to do with it. I mean, yeah, ultimately it was a terrible decision. But they conveyed it so well that Vegeta made that out of arrogance.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, what happened last time? That shit's not going to happen this time.
Right.
I go ahead, absorb him. Nobody can beat me now. I'm the strongest there is. And as far as he knows, he might be.
At that very time and moment.
Yeah.
Actually, was Trunks still stronger?
Trunks had ascended, but he hid it from him.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That was become a reoccurring thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So he had the ascension. So he did so Vegeta ascended. He hit ascended Saiyan.
Yeah.
And Trunks had already ascended, but Vegeta didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Goku had ascended and realized the flaws with the form.
It's slow.
And so he didn't reveal it. Gohan didn't even know what he had at the time. So as far as Vegeta is aware, out of the 4 Saiyans that are here, he has demonstrated the highest level of power out of all of them. Even though he's actually, at this moment, probably the weakest of them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because, granted, Gohan had the raw potential but didn't know it at the time,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Trunks had the power to beat him. He just wasn't fast enough.
Yeah.
Because when Trunks went ascended, he was like whooping Cell's ass.
Oh, yeah.
He was way stronger than Vegeta was. But he just wasn't fast.
And then, Vegeta, it takes so long, in a good way, it takes so long for him to kind of uproot some of those more evil attributes of his. We can even go to the Buu saga.
Yeah.
The motherfucker makes a deal with the devil, Yeah,
he literally kills hundreds, if not thousands of people. Because the insecurity, right? And that this thing that he looks at in himself of, I have to be the strongest and I never am. At this point he knows he was the weakest Saiyan in the Cell saga. I guarantee you he thought about that shit more than anyone. Yeah, I promise you. So you get to this point where he's offered a chance to cheat and just have what he always wanted.
Yeah.
And very few people could say that they would turn that down, Like, I'm going to go to work on Monday. But, if a demon appeared and was like, listen, man, you just got to do a couple bad things and you can have $1 billion. I'd be like...
Now, when you said a couple, you just mean 2?
Yeah, so what exactly I got to do?
Right.
Can I get a fine print on this?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you got Vegeta being told, yes, you can have exactly what you always wanted right now. And, I mean, for him, this is just, he's always wanted to beat Kakarot. He's always wanted to be stronger than him. And you can see how he very easily falls prey to that manipulation. Yeah. Based off of that. Because even before he goes Majin, we actually see him, Goku, back from the dead, Gohan, when they actually go down into, was it Babidi's lair at the time? Or was Bibbidi still alive?
I think Bibbidi was still alive.
Still alive, yeah. And they had the cocoon there. So, when they go there, he even, he points out to Gohan, oh, you haven't been training?
Right.
We already know that he's, Vegeta already kind of reveals there that he's already achieved Super Saiyan 2. He's risen up to that level. He's stronger than Gohan, who was the hero of the planet or whatever. And as far as he knows, he's stronger than Goku right here as well.
Yeah.
But
as far as he knows,
what he doesn't know is that Goku's been training with fucking Pycon,
right?
know, in the other afterlife or whatever, other world, whatever they call it.
HFIL for the American viewers.
Yeah, for the Americans. But so just imagine, he gets to this point where he's guaranteed what he's always wanted. And even then, he still doesn't get it, right?
Still doesn't get it. No.
And I think that's what finally really was the breaking point for him, where it was just like, where have I gone wrong?
Right.
Like, I'm constantly doing these things. And I think he finally, at this point, is where he realizes, like, what I'm doing isn't going to give me what I want.
Yeah.
And he makes that noble sacrifice for Trunks and Goten.
Yeah.
Mainly for Trunks.
But Goten was also there.
If it had just been Goten there, he'd have been like, we should get out of here. Come on.
Yeah, man. And it's so good, right? Obviously it's very clear that Toriyama liked Vegeta. I don't know if he ever loved Vegeta as much as the fan base did or does, but
I think he acknowledged that there were fans who favored Vegeta significantly. And I think Trunks was always his midpoint, like kind of his compromise on that, because Trunks in a lot of ways is really, it's a lot of elements of Vegeta and a lot of elements of Goku.
Not the rabbit hole us, but man, you look at like some of the side stories in Dragon Ball Z, man, they're some of the best. Like you look at, I always talk about Bardock, like his story.
Yeah,
my goodness, what a incredible story. You look at Future Trunks' story. My gosh, what a fucking dark and just amazing story.
Yes,
and it's like shit. Like that's incredible. Just incredible storytelling, incredible writing on that.
And I mean, the way that Future Trunks' story evolved in Super was so good. I mean, it's like the reason I started watching the show. But what I didn't understand is how much cool Vegeta shit we were gonna get in Super as well.
Oh yeah, Vegeta gets some really cool shit, and it's just cool to see that by this point Vegeta, he's gradually been growing and evolving as the series goes on. But by the time you get to Super, you really see that he's maybe now you can say he's finally reformed.
Yeah, he's still him. He's the same guy,
right?
But his motivations are different.
Yeah,
we see him when Beerus shows up. He knows who Beerus is.
Yeah,
we only ever seen him be scared of two people, Broly and Beerus. And the Broly shit at this point isn't canon, so really just Beerus. And but as soon as he hit Bulma, man, that was it.
Oh,
and you can tell at this point his motivations are different. What's driving him is more about protecting his family. He still wants to be the best. That's what gets him out of bed every day still, but that's not his only motivation anymore.
Yeah.
So,
man, if I were just to kill hundreds of bystanders at a tournament and then my wife not leave me, I also would attack a god on her behalf as well.
To be fair, I mean, he was like not directly like mind control, but he was under the influence of Bibidi at that point.
Yeah, still Bibidi. Yeah, sure. So with this next one here,
well, ASMR for him here.
There we go. Very nice.
Yeah.
I'm also going to put an asterisk next to this one because there's not too much I can talk about simply because the TV show hasn't caught up to the comic books yet. But enough for me to mention this character in some capacity. Omni-Man.
I was just going to bring that up because the Viltrumites are so heavily influenced by the Saiyans. Clearly.
Yeah, Saiyans and Kryptonians all day long.
Yeah.
Like Robert Kirkman is not slick in the least bit. I mean, my goodness, Omni-Man. I remember getting volume 1 of Invincible and reading it, and also like the same thing with the TV show. A little bit different with the TV show because the shoe drops earlier on. I think that Nolan is not on the up and up.
Yeah, like first episode.
First episode, yeah. The comic books they draw that out a little bit, leaving you wondering, okay, who's this mystery person? And like in the beginning, it reads almost like a typical kind of coming of age comic book, and you're thinking, at least my thinking was that, okay, whoever this killer is, they're probably going to kill Omni-Man because that's the strongest person, and then Mark is gonna have to step up, and
right.
That's kind of how it reads in the beginning, and then you get to a certain issue and you realize, oh no, it's been Omni-Man this whole time, and like, what the fuck? And so like he kills the Guardians of the Globe, and you're like, okay, well that's fucking awful. I'm not saying that's an easy road to come back from, but maybe there's a reason. Maybe there's something he knows that we don't. And coming to find out, nope, he's got that saying in him, all right. That damn Viltrumite blood. So obviously the whole idea of the Viltrumites is that they travel from planet to planet, and they conquer, and in order to do so, they have to destroy a certain population, and they have to bring that civilization down to its knees, give them the chance to either succumb to them or just face eradication. And they do it under the guise of, but you be getting our science, you be getting some of our technology, our medicine, things that will help improve your miserable little lives, but you will do so underneath Viltrumite rule. And he wants to, or he not only does he want to, but he has to bring Mark under the fold. Mark being a Viltrumite, okay, you have to also have Viltrumite. Mark has to fall in line. And what that means is Mark's life, his entire life has been a lie. So obviously Mark says, Mark is heartbroken, and we as the viewers or readers, we are fucking beside ourselves. Like, what's Mark to do here? Does he follow his dad? I mean, obviously he can't, because everything he knows and loves is Earth and on Earth. And, in both iterations, Nolan just says some heinous shit like, I did love your mother like a pet, and just all kinds of disturbing things, and you just wonder, what can this shit get any worse? And then it does. Nolan kills thousands, if not millions, more people, and then along the way he just beats the ever-living shit out of his son. I mean, to the brink of death. Just absolutely destroys Mark, and is gonna go for the killing blow. But then at the very moment, he decides not to, and he flies off, and we don't see him again for a while. And at that moment, it's so well done, because it makes you think, okay, we now know Mark's primary objective. He's got to recover from this. He's got to get stronger, and he's got to find a way to beat his dad.
Right.
But then you get hit with another curveball.
Yeah.
And for those of you who have seen season 2, you know that Mark is tricked to going to help out this race of bug people. And these race of bug people, actually, they tricked him. And this is the only way that Omni-Man could get Mark, he knew, to come out and talk to him. And, I mean, this is when we're introduced to little baby Oliver and Nolan's new wife and their short lifespan.
Yeah, that whole thing is so weird, right?
Right. And it's, again, like, it's hard to wrap your mind around. And it's like, okay, who is Nolan? Like, is he this loving father and husband? Is he this awful space pirate, essentially? Or who is he now, And he does seem different from the person who tried to kill Mark and take over Earth, but to what degree, So again, obviously I can't go too much into Omni-Man or to what happens with him or where he goes or where his mindset is. But what we do know, at least by the end of season 2, is that he's different, and at the very least, he's leaving some kind of breadcrumbs for his son to follow to help fight the impending threats.
Yeah. I really love this, and I loved how they weren't so quick for it, right? Like, they're giving it time.
Yeah.
And it's also like Nolan not wanting the Viltrumites to kill his son is not necessarily heroic either.
Right.
Because he still views the humans as pets.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they aren't people to him. They are literally not people to him. He is a fucking space racist.
Yeah.
It's clear that he cares about the fly people, but, he also led the Viltrumites there, and they wiped them the fuck out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So, Nolan isn't done with his villainous shit yet.
Of course.
He's in his Ramsay Bolton era, if we're going to use Theon as the measuring stick, because I can't fathom that a Viltrumite prison is a pleasant place. Like, these people don't seem to take very many prisoners.
Right.
So the ones that they make exception for,
yeah,
seems like a rough spot.
Right. Yeah, seems like a place that you might not want to frequent,
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to visit that spot too much.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, obviously, I can't go too much further talking about Omni-Man. But what I can say is keep your eyes out for Invincible Season 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hopefully it'll be a lot shorter time frame than we got with Seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah, otherwise, like, we're all going to be gone by the time they
by the time they finish the show.
If they're going to do, 4 years in between?
Right.
Every episode? By the time we get to Season 10, bro, I'm going to be like 80. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Keep us watching till you're 90.
Or is it 9 volumes?
It's 12 volumes.
12. Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to be dead before we even get to the last act.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good one, man. And I knew we'd probably talk about that one. I got a question real quick before we move on. Does Red Hood have a redemption arc, or did they kind of Harley him as well?
So, I was thinking about that. Red Hood, he does have more of a redemption than Harley, but it's not super solidified.
Because it kind of feels like they were just like, people really like this character. Mm-hmm. He's a good guy now.
A little bit, right? So, like, we see him do, I mean, obviously we get Under the Red Hood, and, obviously that is what it is. We all know Under the Red Hood, tremendous story.
Right.
At the end of that, it's not like he's a good guy. He's still very much the same broken guy at the beginning of the story. So that doesn't change. What people don't know is that following that, we get the Grant Morrison Batman run, and in that run is another Red Hood story, and he is still a fucking villain. Yeah, still like a solidified fucking menace, and it's not really until I would say the New 52 where he starts to make a face turn, and he's leading a group of other, vagabonds called the Outlaws, and so the book is called Red Hood and the Outlaws. And that's when we start. They do the classic thing with good wrestling heels. So when a heel in wrestling goes from heel to a baby face, like the classic technique that a lot of promoters would do is that reformed heel, he doesn't change his personality, but the shit he used to do to the baby faces, he now does to other heels.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Red Hood does. I mean, it's not like he stops murdering. He was still murdering people, but now he's murdering people who maybe truly, you can argue, deserve murder. Obviously, Brewster has a problem with that. And, it's not until even later on that Red Hood finally sort of confirms to maybe I'll use rubber bullets. Maybe I'll just, bring them to the brink of death, but, won't quite murder them. And, that was like in Three Jokers, by the time you see that kind of version of Jason. So there is an evolution of his character there. It's just not super highlighted.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was curious about that. You know, we were talking about this list. Is like, yeah, I mean, I know him from Under the Red Hood, and then I know the Happy Bat Family Rubber Bullets version, but I don't really know a whole lot about
the in between.
There. So I would love to see a video game, go through that.
Oh, so I got this game for you called Arkham Knight.
If Arkham Knight had been that, it would have been incredible.
I got this other game for you called Gotham Knights.
Nope. That's just after. And there's nothing in that game that I want to do. So, my last big one that I wanted to talk about is from a book series. There is a movie about it, but we don't need to talk about that. It's not going to have any of these elements in it. But it's a character from Aragon called Murtaugh. And Murtaugh actually has a book now that he's actually the protagonist of. So.
Okay, so this is not the main character in Aragon. I just thought about what I said.
The main character in Aragon is Aragon.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they are going to come out with the Aragon show at some point. So if you don't want to be spoiled, forget about all this between now and then. But this is a really old book, so here we go. When you first actually meet Murtaugh, Aragon meets him, and he's actually a prisoner of the rebellion. And come to find out, there's this group of dragon riders called the Forsworn that were kind of the, Darth Vader of this situation originally. They... the Dragon Riders were this kind of noble Jedi Order kind of thing, and then you had a group of them that turned, and they're called the Forsworn. His father, Morzan, was the leader of the Forsworn, and so when you first meet Murtaugh, you kind of get this idea of he's only being held prisoner, like he's kind of almost got a Jamie Lannister thing we're going on, where it's like people hate him for this, except this is completely out of his control. Like, people just look down on / hate him because of who his father is, And so Aragon meets him and ends up setting him free. And he's kind of an anti-hero, right? Like, he does kind of help the protagonist a little bit in that first book. And then he gets away. Well, unfortunately, for everyone, Galbatorix, who is the main villain of the series, tracks him down, and he essentially, at first, lures him in with, well, you could become a dragon rider yourself. You could redeem your father's name, essentially. What he doesn't know is that, so in that lore, in that mythology, the dragon has to form a certain bond with their rider. Galbatorix is an incredibly powerful sorcerer in this, and he is a master of using their magic system, which is based on what they call the ancient language. Essentially, this language is the true language of all things. So, rather than... if we see a picture of a chair and we say that's a chair, whatever, we're just describing that. But in this language, their word for chair is literally like the essence of what that is, right? It is the true nature of what that is. And so all of the magic in this world is basically you're manipulating this language in a certain way to cause magic to happen, essentially. Spells and whatnot. So Galbatorix is so incredibly powerful that he essentially forces this young dragon hatchling to bond with Murtaugh. The dragon doesn't choose him. It's a forced bond, basically a double like mutual enslavement to each other, because this baby dragon doesn't want this, and Murtaugh doesn't want this either. He wants to be a dragon rider, but not under these circumstances. Yeah. So he magically forces that bond. Now, through that bond, he does, like, they obviously do become very close because, forced or not, it is there. they live in each other's heads essentially now.
Yeah.
So you got a Tom Hardy and Venom situation, whether or I guess I should say Eddie Brock, but whatever. He's not in those movies. It's just Tom Hardy.
Tom Hardy, yeah.
and a symbiote. But he ends up using that same language to essentially make them swear fealty to him. So he basically imprisons and or tortures them until they do this. Once they've done this, it's not some shit they can go back on. Literally, they are magically bound.
So
now.
No take backsies.
No take these backsies. So he is actually the main antagonist in the second book. So like kind of the way it goes is like, Aragon has his I go off and train with Yoda moment in the second book. And he's pretty much does the Goku thing in the second book. He's gone from the main conflict for most of the book. So it's basically just Galbatorix's army and the rebellion, and they're fighting, and shit's not really going well for the rebellion. He's gone the whole time. In the end, when Aragon shows back up, he's had training now. He's nuts. He's flying over the battlefield, killing like 800 people at a time, because he basically learns how to use magic in a way where it's like, I could use all this effort to lift up a boulder and hit you, but like now I gotta go take a nap.
Yeah.
So he learns how to he just flies over and snaps the right blood vessel in your brain and you have aneurysm and die.
Damn.
And it takes no effort. So he can just do that times whatever.
Shit.
Yeah. So Aragon shows up and him and Saphira are wrecking shit. And then all of a sudden, a big ass red fucking dragon. And you don't know any of the stuff that I've just said about what Murtaugh's doing. You see him in the end of the first book and he leaves, and that's all you know. A big ass red dragon shows up with a rider. And you're like, what the fuck? There are no other dragon riders. It's this huge moment. And it's him. And you're like, where the fuck did he get a dragon? Mm-hmm. How is it this big? Because Galbatorix also magically forces him to grow.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's like almost a Shazam type thing where he's only like a 6-month-old dragon or whatever, but he's in this body of this big-ass dragon. And he is essentially the main antagonist of book 2 and kind of like the co-antagonist of book 3. And the only way that he can actually break those oaths is in this language you also have a true name. And that true name is you. And kind of the whole deal is like, you don't want anybody to know what your true name is because then they can magically affect you with it. And so essentially the only way for you to break this kind of magical bond is to change the very core of who you are to the point that your true name changes. And that's what he has to do, essentially. And so by the end of the 4th book, he's kind of done that. I have not read the new book that just came out it took like 15 years or whatever. But he's the main protagonist of that book, and it's kind of his story. And, he doesn't really have this happy-go-lucky kind of redemption arc. Like, he helps them defeat Galbatorix, but, these people hate him. He has murdered their friends and family and actively worked against, the free peoples of the world and done so he wasn't some minor soldier in the army.
Right.
He's the motherfucker on the red dragon. So, he leaves basically. He goes off into exile is like the last thing that we really know of him is kind of what he's done because him and Thorn, both his dragon, you kind of feel really bad for them because Thorn especially, he never asked for any of this shit, right? Like, he literally was, born and got magically trapped into this. But Murtaugh, he did kind of the Theon thing. He made a little bad choice, and before he knew it, he was balls deep in a mountain of bad choices. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of where he goes with it. But his arc, to me, is always one of those things that I've really cherished, especially from Paolini was 16 years old when he wrote Aragon.
Shit.
And you can tell that reading it. It's literally just medieval Star Wars. I mean, the plot is straight from fucking Star Wars. I mean, like 98%. You know what I mean? Literally from Star Wars. To the point where, like, this is how much Star Wars it is, right? So I told you that Murtaugh's dad, Morzan, he was like the leader of the Forsworn or whatever.
Yeah.
So Aragon's father, him and Morzan had a big ass duel at the end of all this shit.
Oh no.
Yeah. Morzan gets killed, and his father took Morzan's sword.
Okay.
And gives it to Aragon in the first book. And even then, and so it's just a slight twist on the Anakin thing. So in this version, Obi-Wan is his actual dad and keeps it from him until after he dies, and then he finds out that was his father.
Jesus.
You know? But yeah, so
that's damn near like grounds for cease and desist. Like, hey,
it's very heavy. But after that, it
goes its own way.
Like in Eldest, in the second book, it has some slight Empire Strikes Back vibes, but then like by the time you get to the third and fourth books, it's kind of off doing its own thing.
Yeah.
But I always thought that for such a young author, he did such a great job with Murtaugh's redemption arc. So.
And the other shoe still hasn't dropped yet, right? Like, not completely.
Yeah, I mean, we got to see we got to see him actually do the thing and change his true name and kind of get out from under the spell or whatever. Galbatorix is also dead. And then other things that we don't have time to get into in this episode. But no, so him being the protagonist of his own book, I actually haven't got to read through that yet, but I've heard it's quite good. So I'm very interested to see where he goes and kind of what the mentality of Thorn is as well, because he should, by all intents and purposes, be incredibly fucked up.
Yeah. Shit. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the world of Aragon at all. So, that's been certainly interesting for me to learn about that because, hell, again, I barely knew who the main character was.
Yeah, I mean the movie that came out. You don't want to pay attention to that at all.
I remember.
It's really awful. The character that they had play him in the movie was just kind of is this guy, just your very generic, forgettable white dude.
He looks very upset there.
Yeah, I mean, this is clearly not going to become a villain later.
Right? Yeah, you can't see that face.
When you see him in the prison in the movie, he might as well have a sign that's like, "Don't let me out of here. I'm going to become the bad guy."
Yeah,
it's awful sauce. Yeah,
God.
Everything about the movie is terrible. So I'm really hoping that the Disney Plus series that actually has Paolini involved, I'm really hoping that that's markedly different.
Does that have an ETA yet?
No, but Percy Jackson is doing really well.
Yeah.
And they were announced around the same time. And Percy Jackson is kind of the same thing where Hollywood tried their hand at it. And then the author wasn't really involved. But now it's a thing and the author's directly involved in the show. So really hoping that the Inheritance Cycle, which is what this is, the name of this series actually is, will, but everybody just calls it Aragon. Kind of like Game of Thrones,
Right.
Very few people are A Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm hoping. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Right.
I'm making an educated wish.
Educated wish. Yeah, there's gonna be something decent. All right. We're gonna do one more just really quick here, and then we gotta get out of here. But beforehand, I did have some honorable mentions, and who knows, maybe these will be done on like a part 2 if we do a part 2 of this.
Yeah, because we haven't talked about Anakin Skywalker.
No.
And I promised the homie Lauren, I'm so sorry, Lauren, that we were going to talk about that, but I don't think we're going to have time on this one to go into that shit.
No. I mean,
because he has so much canon. I mean,
yeah, and then it's like, oh yeah, okay, we don't have the time for it.
Yeah, we don't. We don't.
That's
a big
rough.
one.
Yeah.
It's like the one,
Yeah, and it's like
in popular media anyway.
Yeah, and like redemption, like man, he changes notes,
Yeah, yeah. It's like, was he really? I mean,
and he gets a Force Ghost, but I'm like, what's the Yeah, what's the gauge on getting a Force Ghost? But
yeah, it's like who decides who
Yeah.
gets the Force Ghost and like
all right, all the younglings, do they all get Force Ghosts?
yeah. I mean clearly they do, and so what's their opinion on him getting one? And also like you also have to factor in his stuff in Ahsoka too, right?
Right.
So yeah, that like I said, that could Anakin Skywalker could damn near get an episode.
Oh, for sure.
We have to have Lauren on for that if we do that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
the
yes, sir.
Anakin archives.
Yeah. And I'll just be here to shit on her parade.
Hayden Christensen got a redemption arc.
That's true. But really quickly here, a couple of honorable mentions. There is Requiem, a.k.a. spoiler alert, Gamora in the comic books. She has a really, really good redemption arc. She goes through a dark phase there for a while, killing Thanos and using the fractured remains of the Infinity Gems to do so with a big-ass sword. She goes through quite the dark phase there, but she comes out on the other end still Gamora. So that was a very good one.
I thought we were going to get a version of that in Guardians 3, and like
I thought
very
so.
kind of did.
Yeah.
James Gunn, we wanted the big ass sword though.
Give us the big ass sword.
If you were going to leave out all the other stuff, we wanted that, but
right,
just throw the big ass sword in there. Though.
Come on, bro. That would have been ball as hell.
Yeah.
Nebula from the movies. She was on my list. I thought that she had a very good redemption arc throughout the Guardians trilogy.
Yes, and including Infinity War and Endgame as well.
Absolutely.
Because that's kind of where we see the turn.
Yeah.
Is Endgame, really.
Yeah, you're right. Well, she's on the ship with Tony Stark, and they definitely didn't fuck. Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. What a tremendous story arc that was.
I figured he was going to be on your list for sure.
And also, of course, Kratos.
Oh, man.
War. Yeah.
So, Kratos damn near has 2 redemption arcs.
Right.
Like, he has maybe even 3, right? Because Kratos kind of has I'm the Spartan, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I got killed. Oh, I have to kill Ares. Like, he has that redemption arc. Then he has the further, am I any better for brutally murdering Zeus?
Yeah.
Like, am I not just the new Zeus?
Right.
And then he has kind of another one in the new games, where he's kind of like, he's doing this thing where he's going against Odin, but you have all the stuff with his wife and the giants and his desire to to protect Atreus, but also to let him be his own person. Like Kratos kind of got a couple.
Yeah. And then you juxtapose that with Freya, and it's like she's the reason why he's so forgiving of her in Ragnarok is because he's like, I was down that same fucking path.
Yeah.
I get it.
And that's really incredible with Freya. I love their story. It's really what kind of holds Ragnarok together for me and I still haven't beat that.
Same. Actually, I just reinstalled it. And I'm like, I'm just gonna start over at this point.
It's about to come out on PC now, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna wait and make sure because the PC port of the original is tremendous. It is way better than the PS4 version.
Damn.
And it's one of the best PC ports of a console game ever. So if the same care is given to Ragnarok, I'm probably just going to end up playing on PC from the beginning.
Yeah.
Because I done forgot so much shit.
Same.
So.
Same. That's why I'm just starting over.
Yeah.
Peacemaker from the Peacemaker TV show, actually from the Suicide Squad to Peacemaker. I thought that whole redemption arc that he had was really good, and it was really well grounded in a show that's played for so much humor.
Yeah.
The haunting last words of Rick Flag still rang in Peacemaker's head. Peacemaker, what a joke.
Yeah.
But I just really enjoyed John Cena's performance. I really enjoyed that stuck with him.
Yes.
And it haunted him.
Yeah.
And so he tries to, in his own goofy Peacemaker way, do better, and tries to do better, and maybe to a degree he's trying to do better, maybe to prove Rick Flag wrong, but also to honor him as well.
Yeah.
So really enjoyed that. And then the last one that I wanted to spend just a few minutes on is someone who we talked about actually quite a bit, Eddie Brock. I mean, he's had. He's one of the quintessential redemption arcs in comic books. I mean, we obviously all know his story, but for those of you who only know the movies, there's certainly a lot more to Eddie than what you get there. Eddie, he starts off really as just quite the piece of shit kind of guy. I mean, there's no two ways about it. He's narcissistic. He's really got no integrity about him. He's extremely jealous, and he blames all of his problems on everyone else but himself. And I just realized this. I'm mentioning a lot of Donny Cates. Donny Cates wrote Silver Surfer Black, and he also wrote one of the most recent Venom runs that people were really talking about. And he also created Noel. So Donnie did a lot of things.
There was actually some jokes, I think, about them finding out at the same time that we did that Noel was in the movie, and they were like, "Can we get paid, please?"
Right. You're like, how fucked up is that?
Yeah.
But so Eddie, he obviously goes through this phase where he hates Spider-Man because his lie was exposed. It was this big murder, this big serial killer going around, and they called him the Sin Eater. And Eddie thought that he had to drop on who the guy was, and so he gets a piece published about Sin Eater, and come to find out he pointed the wrong guy. And it's Spider-Man who's like, nope, this Eddie Brock guy fucked it all up. That's not who Sin Eater is. The guy's not a fucking murderer at all. And that causes Eddie to lose his job, and him losing his job was the final straw. He loses his girlfriend, and like I said earlier, Eddie blames everyone but himself. And so, because of that, he fucking prays for the death of Peter Parker.
This is the perfect person we want to have a symbiote.
Right. At the same time, the symbiote is feeling scorned because Peter had it removed, and the symbiote is like, I thought that we were one. Like that symbiote, that damaged symbiote really bonded with Peter in more ways than one, I guess. But it's the hatred of Peter Parker that draws the symbiote to Eddie, and together they're just the perfect blend of malice, envy, hatred, just all of that brewing in one. And Venom is in so many ways just the perfect fucking predator. He's Spider-Man but better,
Yeah.
And I mean, there's to the point where Spider-Man's spider sense doesn't even work on Venom, so in so many ways Peter's at a disadvantage. And we fast forward years later, to Donny Cates' Venom run, and Eddie, he's just a washed up guy, like he's not some good guy running around. He's not some optimist. He's still fucked up,
Yeah.
And he's got a lot of problems on him. And it's not until he realizes that he's got a kid that he tries to do better. But I mean, he has elements of that same person who he was all those years ago, and seeing him begin to grow was really fucking cool. But it's really just the fact that he's trying to do something that he hasn't done before, which is be responsible. And he now he can now at least acknowledge the fact that he was kind of a piece of shit,
Right.
And there's just so much personal growth that he has in that run. And not only that, but he makes amends with Peter,
Yeah.
And that was also fantastic. And I mean, even though they were underneath certain circumstances, him basically knocking on Peter's door and is like, hey man, so listen, I know that we don't always see eye to eye. There was that time I tried to kill you or whatever. But listen, man, there's a dark god coming to Earth, and he resurrected Carnage and all this other bullshit, and I kind of need some help.
Yeah, we have to deal with it later. Yeah. Like I ain't forgot about it, but
yeah.
We don't have time.
Right, we don't really got the time right now. I'll tell you on the way.
So interestingly enough, on my list, I had Doc Ock from the movies.
Oh man, yeah.
And I also had Jesse Pinkman.
Oh yeah,
yeah. And it's funny because as I was making up this list, I thought about it, and I was like, no one has a redemption arc in the Shield. Like,
man,
they only have the down.
Yeah, the upswing never quite gets there.
Yeah, people just get more and more awful.
Right.
Like, or more and more good.
Yeah, or more and more dead.
Or dead. Like, no one has a redemption. Like, you can, if you try to have a redemption arc in the Shield, you are going to die.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, you might hit the valley and crest, but then you're dead.
Oh, yeah.
Right? But,
yeah, I mean, the last person who possibly could have had one was maybe Lem.
Yeah.
You know, and we see what happened there.
And he tried, you know, he actually really did try to make amends. Ronnie, never.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Just gets worse.
Yeah, man.
Vic just gets worse. Shane just gets worse. I mean,
who's got the worst ending, you think? Like, in terms of
Ronnie.
Yeah, it's got to be Ronnie, right?
Ronnie, yeah.
He just gets royal. I mean, all of that shit gets put on him.
Yeah. Literally, for someone to sit there under oath on tape and admit that they saw you under color of authority commit murder, robbery, torture. I mean, just a ridiculous, like, years-long list. I mean, you're going to jail forever. And, like, you're not going to be treated well in prison.
Right. By anyone.
Yeah. You're not just a cop in prison. You're a dirty cop.
Right. Yeah. He's fucked.
Yeah. Literally. So.
Yeah. Well, that may be where we have to end it today for this redemption arc episode.
I think we're going to have to do another one.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And who knows, maybe one day we'll have our redemption arc. I always imagine the evil, like, do the evil version of the superhero homies, like, do they have goatees? Are they clean shaven?
They have the goatee. We have beards.
Oh, okay.
They have the kept goatee. Love and Thunder was at the top of their list. That's their favorite MCU movie.
Oh, fuck those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, they think that Infinity War and Endgame are just fucking trash tier dribble.
They have a whole episode about how the Snyder Cut is treading on the excellence of the Justice League, and how it's the vastly superior cut. Yeah, they're like, who was this for, DC?
Yeah, like fucking The Justice League is where it's at. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, Joss Whedon's works, the fruit of his loins, which are tread upon by Zack fucking Snyder.
Shit. The evil version of you was running like a UPS dedicated shirt.
Yeah, a UPS shirt, and he's got Hyatt carpet socks on. And Stephanie Meyer is his favorite author. And you can't get him to stop bringing up Twilight on the podcast.
He convinced evil versions of me to start reading Twilight.
Yeah, to start reading Twilight. No, dude, it's really good. And you started reading Twilight and think it's good because the heroine reminds you of your personal favorite, Carol Danvers.
Fucking shit. Prove that we are not in the darkest timeline.
We're not. We are not far from it.
Fuck. Yeah. Okay. Well. Now that we've gotten that glimpse of that dark reality, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. Shit got too real here for a second. But this has been a blast, man.
Yes.
As always, man, I'm so glad to have you here as a co-host. And you truly are an amazing co-host, man. You make this shit so easy.
That's right. Eat a dick, Kevin. I mean, I'm really glad to be here. Shout out to the homie Kevin. You're actually about to go play a D&D with him, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah, so.
I am. I'm going to try not to tell him what you just said.
No, it's my pleasure. I love being here, and I hope all the homies feel the same way. I don't have quite the seductive radio voice that Kevin has, but I like to think that I make up for it with just a little, with the substance.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, homies, that's going to be all for this, and hopefully you guys enjoyed this even half as much as we did. I know we had a blast, but we will see you guys again soon. But until next time, my name is Superhero Homie Q.
And I'm Superhero Homie Caleb.